Resident Evil Extinction.
So Resident Evil Extinction tells the story of the survivors of the Raccoon City incident banding together to endure the world that has been turned into a desolate wasteland. Welcome back to the Resident Evil review series, everybody. We are now at the third movie, Resident Evil Extinction, and this was one that I actually missed in theaters. As much as I really enjoyed Apocalypse when I first saw it in 2004, for some reason, didn't see this one until years later. So this movie came out in 2007. By this point, I was becoming a huge fan of the Resident Evil games. If you missed my first couple of reviews, I did not play any Resident Evil games until Resident Evil 4 came out in 2005. I was an absolute addict of that game, beat it so many times I can't even count on all of the fingers and toes that I have. I've beaten it probably more than any other game out there. And then I started playing the ports, the GameCube ports of Resident Evil 2, Resident Evil 3. I bought the Resident Evil remake for GameCube. I became a fanatic of this series. And I also started to see a lot of the problems with the movie series in retrospect after becoming a fan of the games that they were supposed to be adaptations of. So this was actually the first movie in this series that I watched through the lens of somebody that had now experienced the Resident Evil video game franchise. And that definitely changed my perspective a little bit about what I appreciated and what I did not appreciate on my first viewing. So starting off with the positives, I think that this movie does have some really good action in it. They do carry over a lot of the great stunt work and a lot of the good choreography from the second film. This is not blowing the doors off. This is not reinventing the wheel by any means, but if you just want a B-movie action horror flick, I think that a lot of the action sequences they have here regarding like the demon crows that are coming down trying to eat everybody, or the whole fight scene with the tyrant that eventually lands into the laser grid room from the first film, or even just some of the on-the-road chase sequences. Like, there's a lot of different variety of action in this movie that, if that's what you're here for, if you like the more action-centric versions of Resident Evil storylines, I think that they pull off the action pretty well, just like they did the previous movie. I also like Alice in this movie. Now, this is something that is going to be kind of back and forth for the rest of this franchise, but here in this movie, they give her a little bit more heart. They give her a little bit more of an arc to where she has kind of exiled herself from everybody else to keep Umbrella away from them, eventually has to go back and help them, and she's being controlled by them almost like a program, just like Nemesis, but she's fighting it, and she's taking the fight to Umbrella, and they kind of leave the movie off with that being promised for the fourth film, is that's finally going to be her taking the fight to them. And so for the little bit of a story arc that we get here, I like that. The action sequences and all of the choreography that Milla Jovovich does, again, I think that she's very capable as a physical actress. There's a reason why she kind of became the star of these movies, whether or not you agree with that, and I certainly think that she stole way too much of the thunder from some of the legacy characters. There's a reason why. It's because she can handle a franchise like this with all of her physical abilities, her acting abilities. She's a good screen presence for a movie like this.
I wouldn't do that.
Shut your mouth! Relax!
You show the bag!
I think a lot of the effects work here, for the most part, on like the zombies and all the different crowds of people that they're trying to put in this. is showing much more numbers of zombies, going more for the George Romero, like Day of the Dead kind of feel of the undead. I think that they all look really good. There's a couple of zombies that we get to see close up where the doctor's working on them and trying to reach them, very much like Dr. Frankenstein in Day of the Dead. But you have a lot of really good makeup effects that's showing somebody that has been out in the world decaying for years now. It's not the same look as Resident Evil 2, where it's somebody who's freshly dead but just has a little bit of blood makeup on, or has a little bit of their face missing. This is somebody that has now been a walking corpse for the better part of a decade. And I think that all the makeup effects regarding the zombies and all the attack scenes and all the individual scientist scenes, they all look really good. As a fan of the games, I like the fact that we get to see the Tyrant here. It's a slightly different version of the Tyrant, but as soon as he starts, doing his little extended arm thing, and especially when you see him fully decayed into the T-virus and you just see a part of a human face and everything else is just this hulking monster, instantly fans of the game see that and they go, oh, that's the Tyrant from the first games.
Come on, you test tube freak.
So I like the fact that they incorporate him here. Could have used a little bit more of him, but overall, as far as a on-screen adaptation of that character. I think they do a good job of giving a reason why that character suddenly showed up, but also making him kind of like the big bad of the final act. I thought it worked pretty well. And my final positive, I do like the way that they incorporate the clone storyline into this, to where they're continuously trying to replicate the success of Project Alice, and they're putting her back into the mansion of the first movie and seeing how she can escape all of these different traps, including the laser grid from the first film. I thought it was a cool way to call back to the first movie, as well as show how badass and smart Alice is, and also just show that there's multiple Alices out there that are trying to get to be as badass as, we'll call her Alice Prime. I just like that whole storyline. I thought it was cool that we got to go back to the first movie, and that was a cool way to do it. Moving on to the mixed, it's the entire post-apocalyptic Mad Max style vibe that they're going for here. On one end, I think it's very entertaining. I think that it makes this movie stand out amongst these 6 films. It gives it a very different vibe. And since, Day of the Dead, which really wasn't even so desolate like this one, we haven't really seen too many post-apocalyptic zombie movies that go this far with the actual apocalypse. The world has literally just died because of everything that's gone on. So I think for a visual, it's cool. I think for having everybody wear like these Mad Max style clothing and having scarves on their face, and it's just a very different feel for not only a Resident Evil movie, but just a zombie movie in general, that I enjoy that. The problem is, I think it's absolute bullshit that we've already got to that point. It's like, what, 5 years, I think they say, after the Raccoon City incident. So a little bit of zombie action in one city, in one state of one country, and then 5 years later you're going to tell me that the whole world has died and sand has just overtaken everything. There's no water anywhere. The fucking earth is just dead. I understand we're playing with sci-fi here, but no, that doesn't quite work. And it kind of takes the thunder away from any potential final chapter that they eventually had in this franchise, because that seems to me like the obvious place to end this movie series. If you're going to have plans for multiple films, which they obviously did, why would you not end with the Earth being dead? Why would you get rid of that halfway through your franchise, to where, I mean, they don't even really explain or explore any kind of rebuilding in the next couple of movies, so really jump the gun. Now moving on to the negatives, I think that of the 3 films thus far, this one has the weakest surrounding cast, both in just acting ability and what you give these characters to do, but also the way that they utilize characters from the video games. Now, this is a problem that we're going to have in every single movie that we talk about in this franchise, but you have Claire Redfield here, you've got Carlos brought back, and Carlos is still an enjoyable character for the most part, just because I like Oded Fehr, and I think you could call him anything else and I would just like his character because of that actor. But Claire especially, while I like Ali Lauder, and I think that she does portray a character good in this movie, like she's capable of whatever they give her to do here, there's nothing about her character that makes her stand out. There's nothing about her character that makes you think, oh, that is a really important character to this franchise. That is a really important character to this universe. Again, just like with Carlos, you could have called Claire Jennifer, and it wouldn't have made one bit of difference on this story. And that is aggravating as shit for a Resident Evil fan, because Claire Redfield is like top 5, easy, maybe even top 3 most important characters to the lore of this franchise, and she's just regular old tough chick in this movie. LJ, who is a really enjoyable, at least for me, comedic relief in the past movie, gets nothing comedic to do here. His whole storyline is that he gets bit and doesn't tell anybody, which then makes you hate the character that I liked a lot in the second movie, and the fact that he just didn't get anything funny to do. It's like, why would you hire Mike Epps to play a character in your movie that's not a funny character? That's really weird casting. And then you get a character called Kmart, which, that name can go fuck itself, I'll just say that. But beyond that, she doesn't do anything. Again, stock survivor character. Why is this not the Ashford girl from the second movie? Unless I missed it, I don't even think that they explain where the hell that chick went between the second film and the third film. And you could have easily just had her play the adult version of that girl, and it would have made more sense as a continuation of the second film. You would have got rid of that stupid name, and it would have had that character actually feel somewhat important, aside from just this damsel in distress that just happens to survive through the end of the events. It's not the best cast of characters. Alice, once again, steals the whole show because she has no competition whatsoever. The guy that they cast as Wesker, that was a gigantic mistake. I know that people have a lot of problems with the guy that eventually becomes the more formidable on-screen presence of Wesker in the fourth film onward. I think that he did good enough for the movie that they were trying to get him to be in. But this guy is nothing like Wesker. They just took a regular dude and put sunshades on him. He doesn't have the accent. He doesn't have any kind of the presence. Total waste. You brought in like arguably the biggest villain in Resident Evil history, and he's just regular board meeting guy with sunglasses, and nobody ever calls him like, dude, it's fucking daylight. We're inside. What are you doing with the sunglasses? And finally, this whole movie really feels like a setup movie for the fourth film. There's not really a giant story. There's not really a big arc for all of the characters to endure here. It's not like there's this huge problem that they're trying to overcome that they get to at the end of the movie with the help of Alice. It's really just people surviving. And then Alice just happens to show up, and then really all the arc that we get is hers of overcoming her programming and taking the fight to Umbrella by the end of it. But there's not really like this big storyline that would stand out for this third film. As much effort as they put into making it visually stand out, the story just has nothing here. I mean, you talk about the first film. What happens there? Oh, they go into the lab where the outbreak happened and they discover all the secrets of Umbrella. What happened in the second movie? Oh, the outbreak hits Raccoon City and they're all trying to survive and escape the city before the nuke comes. What happens in the third movie? Bitches survive. So overall, guys, this is another guilty pleasure chapter in this franchise. I can enjoy this one. I can have a good enough time with it, but of the three thus far, this is the weakest because it just doesn't really feel like it has any story merit here. There's nothing that really merits a third film aside from the box office, and this is just setting up everything for a fourth film, which in and of itself kind of sets up everything for the fifth film, which kind of sets up everything for the sixth film. So from here on out, it never really feels like the movies have any heart and soul in them. It's just, let's keep making these because fuck, we're making some money. So if you are a fan of the first two movies, definitely check this one out. It still has the enjoyment factor of the first two films to a certain extent, but there is a lot more problems starting to pop up in their motivations for making these films. And if you're not a fan of the first two, don't even bother with it. So check out this movie online and stream it. So what do you guys think of Resident Evil Extinction? Are you a fan of this third chapter? Do you like the Mad Max vibe that it goes for, or do you absolutely hate that? Thinks it has nothing to do with the Resident Evil games, and you don't even watch this thing if you're paid to? Let me know all your thoughts down below on this third chapter, guys, and we will talk about it. Please like and share this video. Hit that subscribe button if you are a fan of the Resident Evil franchise, either the video games or the movies. We're talking about the rest of the movies. We're talking about the new movie next week. We're going to be having a ranking, and then I've also done a lot of ranking videos and individual reviews for the video games on my backlog. So I've got ranking of the games, the bosses, the characters. I've reviewed 7 and 8. And over time, I'm probably going to go back and retroactively review some of the other games as well. So if you're a fan, hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any of that Resident Evil madness. Thank you guys for watching as always, and remember, opinions are like assholes, but that doesn't mean that you have to be.